Black History Month celebrates the crucial role African Americans have played in helping make the United States one of the greatest nations on earth. Join us as two Central Floridians share their stories next on Metro Center Outlook. Hello, I'm Diane Trees. This month we celebrate and acknowledge the many contributions Black Americans have made to our country. My first guest is John F. Davis, president of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Central Florida. Dating to 1945, the Chamber fosters success for Black-owned businesses by providing leadership and advocacy. Mr. Davis, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You came to the Chamber as president in 2014. What drew you to Orlando, and what attributes do you bring to this role?
I've lived here since 1997. Oh. And I've spent most of my time, though, in Tallahassee, in different parts of the country, as well as here in the state. And was fortunate enough to be given this opportunity in January 2014. And I think the opportunity to be able to create a win-win situation in which, when I look at my background and my professional history, I thought it would be an opportunity for me to be able to continue to give back to this community and to businesses here throughout Central Florida. The focus of the Chamber is to continue to serve as an advocate and a preeminent leader here in Central Florida on behalf of Black businesses, as well as other members, whether it's our corporate partners and individuals who provide support to the Chamber. And our primary objective is to make sure that we help these businesses here be very successful in whatever endeavors and area in which they set out to make money and to be a benefit here to this community.
Can anyone join?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the misnomers I think that exists when individuals hear the African American Chamber of Commerce, they automatically assume that it's just a Black organization. Right. The fact is, the majority of our members, of course, are African American business owners, but we do not limit our membership to just Black businesses. As a matter of fact, we encourage individuals, whether you're Black, Hispanic, you're Asian, doesn't matter what race you are or nationality, we encourage you to be a part of what we're doing here at the Chamber. If
you're a business, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about when I was looking at your mission statement, you have 4 pillars involved. Can you talk a little bit about those and why you picked those particular ones?
Yes. Well, the thing that is most important when you think about business owners, there are various areas that every business, whether you're setting with an individual and giving counseling, there are areas that are always germane and very important. Our 4 pillars, the 4 pillars are advocacy, access to capital, contracting, as well as entrepreneur training. Advocacy, our board members have pretty much slated that to be our primary focus this year as it relates to our pillars. But all of our pillars are important, and it's important to make sure that myself and others are advocating on behalf of our members as it relates to working with government here at the local level, the county level, the state, or even the national level. So those areas of focus are very important, and access to capital. I don't care who you are or how much money you have, it's always important to make sure that you have that ability to be able to have access. And the Chamber serves as a conduit on working on behalf of our members to make sure that the contracting opportunities are there and working with our partners, as well as providing the necessary training, workshops, and seminars to our members to help them be successful.
You seem to take a real focus on an entrepreneurial kind of spirit. At least that's what I gleaned from looking over your website. Would you say that's true, that startups play a big role in what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. I think it's important. One of the things, the startup businesses are extremely important. But we also have an area of making sure that we focus on businesses that have also been in existence for more than 4 or 5 years, as well as our well-established business, like the Zero Chaos and many others that do exist that we do work with as well. But the Chamber, anyone who's interested in starting a business, it is extremely important, I think, and vital to be a part of any chamber. And that's where that's a sweet spot where our corporate partners are also investing in the chamber to be able to help and to assist these individuals with those aspirations to become entrepreneurs.
Is there capital out there?
There's plenty of capital.
And you help with that?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have various board members that are part of institutions that provide capital, whether it's the Wells Fargo or the BB&T or the JP Morgan Chase or the SunTrust. They're all a part of our board and serve a very important role in making sure that they are not just providing resources to the chamber, but they're also looking at ways in which we can help create programs and to that are germane to helping our members with access to capital. What's
the environment like, the atmosphere for Black business owners here in Central Florida? Is it encouraging, building, evolving?
I think it's very encouraging, and I think there's always room for growth and opportunity. I think it's important, again, as I've said, and many of the individuals that I speak with that are interested in starting a business or individuals that already have a business, to get connected to the chamber. By being connected with the chamber, it opens up a world of opportunities to be able to know what's happening, what's taking place here. So, I mean, it's very encouraging when you think about where we were, 8 to 9 years ago.
You have personal experience in starting up a company. Can you share any lessons that you learned? It must be very helpful for your role now.
It is very helpful, and I've actually, one of the things, there are two areas in which I think is very important. I've had a chance to be a part of starting 2 companies. In the first company, a buddy of mine, my best friend from college, and I started called Pro Style Training down in Davie, Florida. And one of the lessons in coming out of that is, and I would encourage and tell anyone, the best time to consider starting a business is when you have a job. And I know some folks may not understand what I mean by that, but when you take on that responsibility of entrepreneurship, you're basically taking on a full responsibility, and you still have bills to pay. So I would encourage anyone that has an aspiration to be an entrepreneur one day to look at putting the pieces in place when you currently have a job, so it's not about having to get things rolling today to be able to pay your bills.
So you minimize the risk a little bit if you already have the job. And you took the risk twice.
Yes,
for doing that.
And I learned the first time around. The second go around, it was at least 8 months that I was planning on what I was going to do next.
You've been recently named for the board of directors for the Orlando Economic Development Commission. How does taking on a role like that help with the role that you play with the chamber?
I think it's very important. I must say that the EDC has been very gracious in making sure that the minority chambers here in Central Florida are at the table, have a seat at the table, and are part of what's taking place. Many individuals know that all the businesses that are coming here to Central Florida, that the EDC has done a masterful job of working with other entities to make sure that we're at the forefront of what's happening. Being a part of the EDC plays a strategic and a major role, not just, for this chamber, for all chambers in general. It allows us to be able to have a pulse on what's taking place. We know what's coming down the pike in the next 5 to 10 years, so we can begin to continue to feed our members and the businesses in our community to prepare for what's going to be coming down the pike in the next 5 to 10 years. So we're ahead of the curve, and we're able to plan accordingly for the opportunities that will exist.
You talk about strategic opportunities, and you mentioned the National Entrepreneur Center. The chamber really has a strategic advantage there with the location.
Yes,
you share the same suite of offices. How do you work with the NEC to facilitate those services for your clients?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
It really is. I tell you, Jerry Ross has done a magnificent job there, he and his team, and heading up. I tell you, I don't know if there's anybody that works as hard as he does to make sure that that umbrella, which we all serve and are part of, which is the NEC, that we have all the tools and the resources that we need not to be successful and to make sure that those that are invested in these chambers are successful as well. We have at least 12 resource partners that are there. The Hispanic Chamber, we're all there together. The Asian American Chamber, the Disability Chamber, we're all there working together. There are multi-chamber events in which we do. We're looking at ways to make sure that we maximize our resources, where the best practices are in full effect.
And learn from each other. Then.
Absolutely, and we're taking advantage of that, and we're working hand in hand. And I think the technology that's there and the resources has allowed us to be able to work with SCORE, to be able to work with the SBDC, and to be able to refer our members. And at the end of the day, we're all one big family, and a part of being that family is to make sure that we create every opportunity, positive opportunity that's there to be able to assist our members in being successful.
Mr. Davis, what would you say is the biggest advantage for someone to join and become a member for the African American Chamber?
I think one of the biggest advantages is just the opportunity to be able to network, to be able to connect. Any chamber, typically all of our chambers, and I know this chamber, we serve as a conduit. We're there to be able to connect our members. So you got business to business that is taking place. We're able to connect our members to corporate partners. There are the relationships that we have with the city, with the county, with the state. That we are a hub, and that having a business, it gives you the opportunity to have a pulse on what's happening, what's taking place today, as well as what's coming down the pike in the future.
Right, great support. Thank you so much, and thank you for the job that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, we'll continue our discussion with an entrepreneur whose company went from a mere $1,000 in the bank to a multi-billion-dollar global entity. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Harold Mills has spent his career developing and leading technology and human resource businesses. He now serves as Vice Chairman of the Board of Zero Chaos, a global provider of workforce management solutions. Mr. Mills, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
You serve as Vice Chair of the Board for Zero Chaos. Can you tell us a little bit about the company and how your role, what you've played into this?
Okay, it's a great company. We are a workforce management company that supports companies with their outside labor. We have some software that I often refer to as eBay for people, effectively helping people bid on work for a variety of companies around the world. And we started the business here in Orlando about 2000, and now we're in 45 countries around the world.
And you were instrumental in the process.
I was. I've been a part of it the whole way, and I'm delighted as what we've achieved so far.
I read in an article that your first job, you started out driving a tractor for $4 an hour. How did you develop and channel your own entrepreneurial spirit?
Oh, well, interesting. That job was a fun job, I would tell you. But it was about independence. It was about leadership, and probably more importantly, it was about work ethic. I think when you're driving a tractor, you know, you only have so much time when you're out in the field before the sun goes down, and you have to achieve the goal. And having worked with my partners who were back on the wagon, stacking the hay, those types of things, it became a real opportunity to develop, I think, a strong work ethic for me and myself. It's interesting because my next job really was one at General Motors, where I went and applied for a summer internship one year. And they told me, well, you know, we don't really hire people directly. You have to join one of these community organizations to be employed here as an intern. So I left the office, the HR office. I went to the organization, signed up at the organization, came back the next day and applied for the job.
And you got it.
And I got it. So I love the work, and I think that first job really set the foundation for who I would become and what that has led me to develop within Zero Chaos as well.
The articles that I've read about you, I would say they describe you using words like passionate, determined, risk taker, rebel, ambitious.
Yeah.
What would you say are your maybe 3 most valuable attributes that have led you to success?
Well, I think all those terms are accurate, but if I had to pick 3, I would start with work ethic. I love to work. I don't think anybody can outwork me, and I don't mind that in order whatever it takes to achieve the goal. And so I'm very goal oriented in that sense. I'm also quite empathetic. In the sense that, particularly as we got larger and larger, I don't really do much of the daily work myself. So I know that I have to get my results or achieve our goals through other people. And those other people that you fight in the trenches with every day, they all have their personal issues. They have all their professional issues and things that they're trying to achieve as well. So as long as we're empathetic with each other, I think that's critically important for us. And then the last thing I would say, I am passionate about what we're doing, but also why we're doing it. And that became very important to me as we began to build the business, and I began to build a team that will help us create what we've been able to achieve so far.
How would you counsel budding entrepreneurs with the background that you've had? How do you build and develop a company? Is there things that you can tell people?
Yeah, I like to talk to entrepreneurs about a few things. One is being different, right? So the worst thing I hear is when someone says, I want to start a business and I'm going to offer better service. Well, that's kind of hard to differentiate yourself on better service, or at least, it's not very defensible. A lot of people can improve their service offerings, et cetera. But what product or solution, how is it unique, and how is it solving a specific problem for a given customer, with hopefully many customers? So being different is significant for me. I would also say passion, because many times entrepreneurs think, the glossy-eyed, version of what it is to be an entrepreneur. But the truth is, it's very difficult. And the truth is, you're going to get a lot of doors slammed in your face. You're going to get a lot of no's said to you before you have ultimate success. It is that passion that gets conveyed in your sales presentation, in your marketing materials, all those things that are required to get someone else to believe your same dream as you.
When you talk about having that belief and maintaining that yourself, did you have a mentor? Did you have support to help you with this?
The answer is yes. In fact, I had an opportunity to speak with Michael Dell at one point at a Ernst & Young conference, and he talked about himself. Michael Dell, the greatest entrepreneur some people would say known, had 7 coaches, right?
Whoa.
So I have several mentors that serve different purposes in my life. I have mentors who've been with me, since I was in high school, that just talk to me about, what it means to mature and what it means to lead and what it means to carry the burden of other people's lives on your shoulders. I have mentors in the technology world and what's the latest and newest and greatest and how we should infuse that into our business overall in terms of our overall strategy. And then I have mentors who help me with the global aspect. So I think having that breadth of people who you can truly trust, who that are only interested in your success, and candidly, the ones that will tell you when you're wrong, all right? When your opinion is wrong, your position is wrong, and they know, and they're doing that for the right reasons, not for any self-interest at all. That's been an important aspect of my personal growth in this process.
It sounds that you're receptive to that as well, and you made those outreach efforts. What can you share in terms of what have you learned from your own mistakes and experience that you might be able to pass along?
Well, I've made many mistakes. I think the first thing that you learn is that it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, we like to say, in our company, if it's okay to fail, just fail quickly, right? So the point
and
being,
don't do it again.
right, exactly. Don't make the same one again. The point being is that if you're not failing, you're not taking enough risk. And if you're not taking enough risk, you're not going to ultimately achieve your goal of what you're trying to achieve. And so I tell people, listen, don't be afraid to make those mistakes, but also try to learn from them the fastest and the best way you possibly can, so you don't repeat those mistakes, but at the same time understand there's going to be another one along the horizon, and set up that infrastructure, whether it's mentors or other feedback mechanisms, to make sure you're learning from that process.
Mm-hmm. Did you face challenges because you're an African American?
Of course. Listen, when
I'm sorry that it has to be, of course.
Yeah, it is, and the truth is that look, a lot of times when you're starting a business, people have networks they go to. Some people have uncles they go to that can introduce them to someone who can introduce someone. Those kind of networks don't necessarily exist for African Americans. And when you're talking to large corporations, you're really trying to build credibility not only in your solution or your technology, but you're trying to build credibility in yourself. And everyone is comfortable with people like themselves mostly.
How did you deal with this?
Look, I have to tell you, one, going to those mentors that I talked about before and getting advice from them. But I would also tell you that I've also come across some incredible people, non-African Americans, who did believe in me, who did give our business a chance, who were willing to take risks, those types of scenarios. So I would tell you that even though you have challenges like anything else, you never let those challenges overwhelm you. You never let those challenges be a reason why you don't knock on that door, or a reason why you don't get up in the morning feeling just as passionate as you did yesterday. You face those challenges and you overcome them. You overcome them by establishing that credibility, meeting the people who can help you. And I've been very blessed and fortunate to identify some of those folks, even in large corporations, who were ultimately willing to take a big risk on us and candidly have been along my side along this journey, helping our business grow and helping me to grow personally and professionally.
What would you counsel budding entrepreneurs, African American entrepreneurs now in dealing with those situations? Is it the same kind of things? Have we changed, progressed at all?
I would have the same advice for African American entrepreneurs as I would others, and the answer is yes. We have made a lot of progress in this country, in particular, and across the world. And that still is about being passionate about what you're doing and what you're building, but also why. Right? And because when you start talking about why, or at least when you know that internally, that's what you're able to communicate. So if people did happen to feel threatened, they're a lot less threatened. If you found that person who did get excited, just as excited as you are, then they're going to be even more excited about helping you and helping your business grow.
Well, that passion is obviously comes through with you. But that leads me back to Zero Chaos. Mm-hmm. How did you keep that innovative spirit, that drive to keep moving and evolving in a company? That's difficult.
It's very difficult, and I'm a curious person by nature. So being unique and being innovative is fun to me. It's a fun way to learn about new things, et cetera. And then when you're trying to convey that message to other people, there's a variety of things that we did structurally within the organization. One is that innovation is one of our corporate values as an organization. Two is we introduced a concept called Ideas from Everywhere, where we solicit ideas from anyone and everyone in our company. And there's a competition, sort of like a Shark Tank competition.
Oh, cool.
And if you win that competition, you not only get to lead that project, but you also get a $10,000 prize, and we become your sort of internal private equity or venture capital inside the company. So when you have those structures, then other people get to see the value of ideas. And when you have a structure where one of those ideas or many of those ideas don't work, they fail, those people are not punished. Those people are promoted, right? Those people are the ones that they went out and they took a risk.
Right.
And those are the people that we ultimately value in the organization structurally. So that became important of how we kept that entrepreneurial spirit within the organization.
If you had one piece of advice to give to a budding entrepreneur, what would it be?
If I had one piece of advice to give to an entrepreneur, I would say, continue to be curious, continue to learn. And I would say, first and foremost, follow your passion. It is, I can't say this enough, it is that passion that gets you through the dark days. And there will be lots of dark days. And the only thing that moves you forward is the passion for what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I love entrepreneurs. I love to help them. I love to talk to them. I love how they change the world for us every day.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us on Metro Center Outlook. Until next time, I'm Diane Trees.